Sometimes when we feel lost, we need to get out of our comfort zone to discover our purpose in life. This story is about socialites Julia and Sydney, who left their lives in Chicago to embark on a road trip. They end up on the wrong side of the law in a tiny town in Wyoming. Right there, Julia discovers there's more to life. In the opening scene of Valentine Ever After, Julia is practicing law in her father's firm. She designs a new website, unknown to her father. However, he joins her and shares some good news with her. He has won a case. He's proud of how hard his daughter works, and she reminds him of his late wife. He also believes she will pass her upcoming bar exam, because he sees her concentrating. However, upon finding out she's designing their new website, he feels she's procrastinating in her study. He suggests she come over to study at his place. Meanwhile, he wishes her mother was there to witness a special day. Julia is surprised, because she believes there's nothing special about her day. It seems her father is planning something special for her. What can that be? We will find out. She urges him to reveal what he's hiding, but he refuses and reminds her about her date with her rich hot boyfriend, named Gavin. Julia dresses gorgeously on her romantic date with Gavin. She even reveals that Sydney, who happens to be her best friend, selected the dress for her. Guess what? Surprisingly, he proposes to her, claiming they will accomplish great things in life together. He believes so much in their future together. On the other hand, Julia is surprised, because she was not expecting it. But she accepts his proposal regardless. The day is indeed a special one. But she does not look ready for the marriage. Her father and Garvin's parents join them to congratulate them. She's surprised and realizes they have it all planned out. Their parents eagerly want to set a date for their wedding. Garvin's parents want it to be fancy because of their reputation, but her father wants it in a small ceremony. At this point, she becomes more unsure about the whole wedding plan. Eventually, they do not conclude about the wedding dates. Julia wishes there was more time for her to think about her engagement to Garvin. The next day, Julia visits her friend Sydney to discuss her engagement. She goes through the newspaper and discovers her engagement to Gavin is on the front page. Unfortunately, this publicity is not really her thing, because her family is not that influential. She shows it to Sydney, who is happy for her. Meanwhile, she encourages Julia and believes she will get used to that kind of lifestyle eventually, and Julia hopes so. Sydney wonders why she's feeling off about her engagement. Julia claims it's because of her upcoming exams, and she wishes to get engaged after the exams. But Sydney thinks she's ungrateful for having such an opportunity. She wishes she understands how lucky she is to have a wedding to plan, unlike her, who's single. This makes her feel she needs to take a trip, so she can get over her ex-boyfriend. It sounds nice, and Julia sees it as an opportunity to get away. She suggests they visit the exact place they visited during their trip in senior year, Wyoming. She sees the newspaper and discovers the place has a special event for the weekend. Sydney feels it is an impromptu trip. Just to convince her to go, Julia mentions it will be their last trip together before her wedding. Sydney finally agrees. However, while Julia gets ready to leave for Wyoming, Gavin feels bad about it and believes she's supposed to discuss it with him. He senses she's nervous about their engagement. Julia admits she's nervous about everything that will happen, before and after the wedding. He tries to understand how she feels, so finally he agrees to let her go for the trip, since it's just for the weekend. Let's hope this trip will not do more harm than good. In the next scene, they travel to Wyoming, and they're glad to arrive there safely. While trying to find their way around the city, their car develops a fault, and they get stranded in the middle of nowhere. They even blame one another for their circumstances. However, Julia thinks of a way out and suggests Sydney reach out for help, while she checks if she can fix the car. Unfortunately, there's no signal, and the car cannot be fixed. They think of another way out, and hope they will not need to spend the night there, because of the cold weather. Luckily, they see a man dressed in a cowboy outfit taking a casual ride with his horse. They call out for help, and he approaches them. After seeing him clearly, Sydney admits he's a good-looking cowboy to Julia. They reveal their unfortunate circumstances to him, and after assessing the situation, he concludes they will not be able to fix their car that same day. He suggests they stay over at his family ranch for the night, to avoid freezing. The man assures them that his mother will be delighted to meet them. Julia and Sydney are glad to get substantial help. He finally introduces himself to them as Ben, as he leaves to get his truck. Afterward, he takes them to their ranch and introduces them to his mother Lily, and the ranch manager, who's also like family. They graciously welcome the ladies. Julia even believes Ben's mother is charming. Later at dinner, they get to know each other. The ranch manager's daughter, Gab, is always with Lily, because her mother's job as a nurse is too demanding. Gab notices Julia's ring, making Julia reveal that she is engaged. After enjoying Lily's meal, Julia suggests they open a restaurant, but Lily reveals that her son has a better plan for the ranch. He wants to make it a place where tourists can visit and have a nice time. Being a city girl, Sydney feels the town is boring, and wonders if the tourists would love to stay because of the lack of fun activities. This makes Lily insist that Ben takes them out to show them the fun places after dinner. Sydney is glad, and can't wait to see the fun part of the town. They do go out after dinner, and Ben takes Julia and Sydney out to the local bar. Sydney, who's anxiously waiting to have fun, leaves them to dance with the cowboy. Ben and Julia, who clearly have some things in common, sit to enjoy the atmosphere. They get along really well. Julia sees a statue that looks like an old man and wonders what it signifies. Ben reveals it's a statue of the grandfather of their judge. It's very costly, and it's one of the most historic monuments in the city. Julia is surprised at how important it is, and how carelessly it is being displayed in a bar. One of the waitresses, who happens to know Ben, flirts with him, making Julia believe she's into him. But Ben feels they can't be more than friends. Meanwhile, while Sydney dances with a newly found cowboy, she mistakenly steps on another lady and spills her drink on her dress. While she tries to apologize, the lady angrily insults her, including her fashion sense. This makes Sydney angry, and it results in a noisy fight. Guess what? In the process, Sydney knocks over the statue, and Julia is unable to save it. Everyone is shocked, and they believe it will eventually not end well for both of them. Strangers fighting with locals and destroying the town's monument is not exactly an example of acceptable behavior. In the next scene, they are arrested and their mugshots are taken. They are taken for an emergency session in the judge's chambers afterward. This is because they are not sure they arrested them on the right charge, and want the judge to weigh in. The angry judge believes it's not an accident. He reveals the importance of the statue, and also tries to give them an absurd punishment of 2 years. Ben steps in and recommends community service as their punishment. The judge agrees, and wants it to last for 30 days, and it will be carried out in Ben's ranch, since he suggested it. He has no choice but to agree. Julia tries to reach out to her dad, who's a lawyer, but they do not give her a chance. Reluctantly, they agree to go with the punishment. A weekend getaway turns into a 30-day community service. How will Gavin receive this news? We will find out. In the next scene, Ben takes them to their new room. It's quite a plain room, and it's not what they were expecting. But he tries to make them comfortable as much as possible, and leaves them to get used to their new room. The next day, Gavin calls them. He's surprised, and believes his parents will not be happy with her circumstances. Julia has tried to fix the situation by eventually reaching out to her dad, because she believes that a small-town judge can easily be influenced. Unfortunately, they can't fix it, and she even has to reschedule her exams. Gavin blames Julia for going on the trip in the first place. He plans to reach out to her later for more updates. After the call, Sydney feels bad for what's happening in Julia's relationship, and decides to take the blame for everything. Julia believes it's not her fault. To ease their unfortunate situation, Julia thinks the town is beautiful, and suggests they go exploring before the community service begins. Later, when they approach the ranch manager, they see Ben teaching the ranch daughter Gab how to ride a horse. Julia wants them to give riding a horse a trial, but Sydney changes her mind because she's afraid. She leaves them, and so does the ranch manager and his daughter. Ben gives her a horse named Sundance. He concludes she will not be good with horses, since she's a city girl. Unfortunately, he's surprised, because she's good with it. Afterward, she decides to go and appreciate the horse, but she bumps into Ben and his ranch manager discussing the ranch. Julia decides to eavesdrop on their conversation by the door. The ranch has not been making a lot of money for a long time, so the branch manager suggests they sell it. Soon, they notice Julia, and she apologizes for her eavesdropping. In the next scene, they wake up to resume their community service. On getting there, Julia reveals the financial situation of Ben's family ranch to Sydney. Since they're staying for free, and the place is cool, Julia wants to assist them financially. Sydney agrees with her, and plans to start by giving them the money she's expecting from her wealthy father. Meanwhile, the police officer tries to make their community service easy. He introduces them to a man that will give them their first task, and they get to work. It has to do with cleaning the horse stable. They think of a way to make their work easier, and Sydney suggests they use a tractor. Well, this doesn't seem clever, because it results in some damage. Their first task did not go as expected. After their stressful and long day, they encourage each other. Sydney has been able to give the cash her dad sent to Lily, as she promised. While Sydney complains that her body aches, Ben joins them to return the money, because he feels it's not necessary. They're surprised. He leaves, then Julia meets him and insists he collects the money, because she believes the ranch needs it. He still declines. Later, Julia joins Lily to make dinner. She believes as his mother, she will be able to convince Ben to accept the money. Lily makes her understand that his ranch development idea is a good one, but feels it's too late, because their money will not be enough to fund it, especially since they inherited debts when the recession hit. So, their money will not make any difference, and that's why Ben declines it. Ben approaches the kitchen to get some food, but leaves as soon as he sees Julia. It appears Ben is now being distant from Julia. The next day, the police officer takes them to where they will carry out their next task. They try to get it done, and as usual, there's another case of minor damage once again. How long will they keep damaging things? Not making substantial headway, the police officer decides to give them a last chance. He takes them to the hospital and hands them over to his wife Molly. He suggests she gives them different tasks to avoid any more damage. Julia decides to do the cleaning services, while Sydney will assist with the patient care. The police officer leaves and wants his wife to reach out to him if they cause any damage. Sydney gets to meet her patient, and at first it is a rough start. but they eventually get along well, such that he gets to know about her last relationship. When Molly finds out Sydney is doing well with her patient, she's glad. Meanwhile, Julia also gets to work without causing any damage. Later, Julia is curious to know how long the hospital has been raising the fundraiser. Molly thinks it has been in existence for a very long time. Sydney, who has an interest in anything relating to fundraising because her mother is good at it, suggests they grab the moment and also create a wave of excitement. Then they can get money from people. After they get home, Gab's mother, who's also a nurse, joins them. Although she works in the same hospital they are serving, they have never met. She reveals they need a lot of funds to fix and replace the hospital's long overdue issues. However, Sydney believes there is a limit to what they can do for community service. But Julia thinks of a better idea, which she's not willing to share yet. In the next scene, they meet with the judge, but we do not get to know what they discuss. Later that night, they share the good news with Lily, and they decide to reveal it to Ben too. They plan to hold a fundraiser for the hospital, and the judge supports their idea. However, Sydney will leave for Chicago to sell raffle tickets. This way, they can raise funds for the hospital, and the winner gets an all-expenses trip to their ranch, which will also be a benefit to the ranch. But Ben feels their idea is not unique enough to save the ranch. However, Julia wants him to reconsider, so she suggests she will design a website. As he leaves them, Julia, who does not give up easily, goes after him to make him reconsider. After much convincing, he eventually accepts. They will work together as a team. The next day, Sydney leaves for Chicago, and Julia believes she will find a way to get people to the fundraiser. While Sydney is delighted to travel back to the city, Julia likes the new place. Their work together as a team begins, and Julia decides to brief him on what they need to do. He suggests she should take care of the fundraiser with the website, while he takes care of the ranch. Ben tries to renovate the ranch, while she designs and plans the fundraiser. Lily supports them. But as they work, Ben can't seem to keep his eye off Julia. Is he falling for her? Later, while Julia tries to design the website for the ranch, she uses Ben's cowboy picture as part of the design. She keeps smiling at how good-looking he is. She's so keen about the fundraiser that she forgets about Gavin entirely. In the next scene, the police officer comes with more people for community service at the ranch. Eventually, the judge is supportive of their cause. Later, Julia and Ben try to conclude their plan for the fundraiser. Julia admits he's romantic because of the idea he proposes. Likewise, he appreciates her for the support so far and wishes to repay her. This makes Julia suggest they go horse riding. They do, and she's amazed by the beautiful view of the city. It reminds her of her mother, who never got used to city life. She now understands how she feels, and thinks that their arrest was a good thing, as it's made her fortunate enough to experience such a serene lifestyle. Afterward, they get the horses ready for the fundraiser. They discuss life, plans, and goals. This makes Julia reveal that being a lawyer is not what she wants. She became one because she lost her mother. Ben understands how she feels, because he felt the same way when he lost his father. The community service has helped her to rediscover her life view. At night, she makes a virtual call with Sydney, who reveals that people are buying the tickets in Chicago. Sydney's father promises to support them financially, because he's surprised at the purposeful person she has become. In the next scene, they continue to prepare for the fundraiser event. Lily suggests they have a cowboy auction at the event, because it's Valentine's Day, and it will be romantic. They agree, and Julia suggests they take pictures for the website. Julia and Ben dress in a cowboy outfit, and they dance while Molly takes their picture. They hope the pictures get more people to buy the tickets. At this point, Ben is falling in love with Julia, and he compliments her beautiful smile. She remembers she's engaged, so she tries to avoid flirting with another man. Surprisingly, Gavin shows up, leaving Ben heartbroken. In the room, Gavin tries to get all over her, but she tries to subtly avoid him. She shows him her new website for the ranch, but he does not have any interest in her design. He just wants to show her how much he misses her. Ben joins them, letting them know they need to pack up, because he plans to renovate their room. The next day, Lily and Gavin get talking. She believes Julia is hardworking, with a good heart. Julia joins them, and Lily leaves. Gavin doesn't think she's delighted to see him. He wants her back, and she promises to get back to her old life soon, when the fundraiser is over. She even plans to change his mother's opinion concerning their wedding, when the fundraiser is over. She invites Gavin to the fundraiser, and he plans to attend. In the next scene, Gavin decides to return to Chicago. Ben tries to flow with him, but it does not go as he plans. Gavin decides to show Ben that he's rich, so he offers to assist them in terms of finance. Ben feels bad, and thinks Julia has revealed his financial struggles to him. But when Gavin leaves for his car, Julia assures Ben that she didn't say anything. Later, Julia is worried, so she checks for Ben, who is nowhere to be found. Afterward, Ben also checks for Julia, but the ranch manager informs him that she is out horse riding. He finds her horse, but she is nowhere to be found. He is scared and hopes nothing bad has happened to her. He eventually finds her, but Julia wants them to stop whatever is going on between them. She has given it a thought and believes Gavin is a good man, and he was there when she lost her mother. Ben understands her point, but wishes she would reconsider. Soon, it is now a few days to the fundraiser. Sydney has concluded her part, and the Chicago delegation are on their way. Ben has finished the renovation in Julia's room, and he has also named it after her. This surprises her, and she promises to always visit. But with the prospect of getting married to a man like Gavin, Ben believes she will not be able to come back again. Sydney arrives with all the guests, and Lily, Julia, Ben, and many more also welcome them to the town for Valentine's weekend. Julia is glad to see her dad and all the guests. Sydney did a great job. Later, Gavin also shows up, and Ben admits he will never get a chance with Julia. Sydney and Julia welcome all the guests to the ranch. They give them details of how much they have raised so far. They list all the activities they will be engaged in over the weekend, and hope they enjoy their adventure in Wyoming. Meanwhile, Gavin discusses with his friend from Chicago. He reveals he's attending the fundraiser because of Julia, and does not find this kind of gathering interesting. Unfortunately, unknown to Gavin and his friend, Julia overhears their discussion. The next day, Sydney decides to give horse riding a try, while Julia stays over to take care of the ranch. She sees Gavin and wants them to talk. She reveals she overheard his conversation with his friend. Then she suggests he leaves and breaks up their engagement. His attitude has made her realize they are not made for each other. She's discovered her purpose right on this ranch, but he downplayed her efforts and doesn't believe in it. Gavin is surprised and wants her to reconsider, but she's convinced of her decision. Although, she appreciates him for his support when she lost her mom. Gavin is speechless, but has no choice but to respect her decision. Later, Ben bumps into Julia and sees when Gavin leaves. Unknown to him, she just broke up with him. Julia tries to explain the whole situation to Ben, but he reminds her how she warned him to stay away from her, and he leaves. In the next scene, at the fundraiser, which is also a Valentine's party, Sydney chats with her senior citizen friend, while all the guests enjoy the party. Julia checks around for Ben, and when she finally finds him, he ignores her. Molly anchors the Cowboy auction with Ben. The ladies have to bid for him, and the highest bidder gets a dance with Ben. Julia and another girl are fighting bid for bid. Her father supports her decision to leave Gavin, wanting to be a good parent. To help her, he and Sydney's mother give Julia their money. This helps her to win. After winning, they dance, and Julia reveals she broke up with Gavin. Ben is ecstatic, holding her tighter, believing they might finally have a chance together. She admits that feels more at home in this town than she has in forever. Now she has found her purpose, which is in helping people. Ben leans in and captures her in a loving kiss.